Pastor Joshua was a demon preaching on the altar. The congregation saw him as a holy man, but in the dark, he was a creature of evil. Be careful of the church you attend. Many people run to churches without doing proper checks, both physical and spiritual. Not every altar is clean, and not every pastor is truly called by God. Miriam stood at the wide wooden door of the church, her eyes glowing with joy as she watched the members pour in with bright smiles. At the center of it all stood Pastor Joshua, her husband. He was tall, strong, and gentle. His voice carried peace, and when he laughed, people's hearts melted. To Miriam, he was more than a husband. He was her blessing, her partner, her best friend. They had been married for 12 years, yet every day still felt like the first day she had fallen in love with him. The church, called the Church of Light, was their pride. What had started as a small gathering in a dusty village square had grown into a great ministry. People came from far and near to worship, to seek miracles, and to find hope. And everyone loved the pastor's wife Miriam, who always stood by Joshua's side with a soft smile and a kind word for everyone. Their home was just behind the church. A white house with red roofs, wide gardens, and a small fountain in front. Miriam filled the house with flowers, roses, lilies, hibiscus, and always baked bread for the children who came to play in the yard. Happiness seemed to overflow like water from a fountain. It was the kind of life many dreamed of. Every Sunday, Pastor Joshua preached with fire and love. Miriam always sat in the front, her head covered with a fine scarf, her eyes shining with pride as she watched her husband speak. The church grew rich with gifts and tithes. Families donated land, businessmen gave money, and politicians visited often, sitting in the front row with thick envelopes tucked into their Bibles. "The hand of God is upon this church," Joshua would say, and the people would cheer. Miriam felt proud. She loved seeing children get scholarships through the church. She loved the food drives that fed the poor, the prayers that healed the sick, and the marriages that blossomed under their guidance. She loved hearing members call her Mama Miriam, as if she were mother to them all. In those days, laughter filled the air like music. But behind every blessing there is always a shadow. Miriam began to notice things that made her heart pause. She saw a young man who once sang in the choir leave suddenly and never return. She saw a woman who used to sit in the front row crying outside one evening, whispering something about betrayal. When Miriam asked her husband, he simply smiled and said, "My dear, people will always talk. Do not listen to gossip." She nodded. She trusted him. He was her husband, her pastor, her covering. But still, the whisper stayed in her heart. It started with little things. One night, Miriam woke up and found Joshua's side of the bed empty. She went to the living room and saw him on the phone, speaking in a low voice. When he noticed her, he smiled quickly and ended the call. "It was just one of the brothers in the church," he said. "He needed prayers." She believed him, but something about the way he had ended the call made her heart beat faster. Another time, she found a sealed envelope tucked under some books in his study. Curiosity made her open it, and inside she saw thick bundles of money. There was also a piece of paper with names written on it, names she recognized as church members. Some names had marks beside them like codes. Before she could ask, Joshua came into the room. He smiled, took the paper and said, "My love, these are just records for donations. You worry too much." She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe every word. But why did the names look more like targets than donations? Why did the money smell like secrecy? At night, Miriam sometimes heard footsteps around their house, as if strangers were watching. She told Joshua, but he laughed. "You read too many stories," he said. But the truth was, Miriam was not imagining things. Shadows had begun to gather around the Church of Light. Miriam was a woman of prayer. Every morning she knelt in her room, her Bible open, her tears falling as she prayed for her husband, her family, and the church. But the more she prayed, the more she felt a weight on her heart. It was as if God was trying to show her something hidden, something dark. One evening after service, She saw two men in black suits talking quietly in a corner. When she walked closer, they stopped talking and walked away quickly. Another time she overheard two women saying, "If only the pastor's wife knew what was really going on." Her heart shook. What was going on? What was it that she did not know? But she could not ask openly. If she questioned too much, people might think she did not trust her husband. And in the eyes of the church, that would be shameful. A pastor's wife was supposed to be a pillar of faith, not a doubter. Yet, deep inside, Miriam knew the truth. Something was wrong. Something was hiding behind the pulpit. Something that could break the joy they had built for years. And if she was not careful, that something would destroy not just her marriage, but the entire church. That night Miriam could not sleep. She turned from side to side on the bed, listening to her husband's calm breathing. He was fast asleep, his chest rising and falling, as if nothing in the world bothered him. But inside her, a storm raged. Why did the two women say, "If only she knew"? Why did the men in black suits vanish when she walked closer? Why did her husband smile too quickly whenever she asked questions? Her heart whispered to her, "Miriam, something is not right." She got out of bed quietly and knelt by the window. The moonlight poured into the room like silver water. She prayed in a soft voice. "Lord, if there is something I need to know, show me. Do not let me be blind. Protect my husband. Protect our church. Protect me." Her tears dropped on the wooden floor. But though she prayed long into the night, no clear answer came. Only silence. The next evening, after midweek service, Miriam was walking home through the garden when she felt eyes on her. She turned quickly but saw no one. Then she noticed a shadow near the church gate. "Who is there?" she called. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. The shadow stepped forward. It was a young woman, maybe in her 20s, with tired eyes and messy hair. She wore a faded dress. "Mama Miriam," the woman whispered. "Please. Please, I need to talk to you." Miriam's heart raced. She had seen this woman before in church, sitting at the back. But she had stopped coming months ago. "What is it, my dear?" Miriam asked gently. The woman's lips trembled. "It is about the pastor. Your husband. Cannot say here. They will hear me. Please, can we meet tomorrow? At the old market square, near the mango tree." Before Miriam could reply, the woman ran away into the dark. Miriam stood frozen. What did she mean? Who were they? And why about Joshua? When she returned home, Joshua was already in the living room, laughing with two men in black suits, the same ones she had seen whispering. When she entered, they both stopped smiling. "Ah, my love," Joshua said, standing quickly. "These are just church partners. They came to discuss land for a new branch." The men nodded, but their eyes did not. Their eyes were sharp, watching her as if she was the intruder. The next day, Miriam's heart beat hard as she walked toward the old market square. It was empty, the stalls closed, the dust rising under her feet. The mango tree stood tall, its branches heavy with fruit. The young woman was not there. Instead, Miriam found a folded paper stuck between the tree roots. She picked it up, her hands shaking. It was a letter. The writing was messy, but she read it carefully. "Mama Miriam, you do not know the truth. The pastor is not the man you think he is. Be careful. Do not trust everyone in the church. The Church of Light is hiding darkness. Meet me again when it is safe." Her eyes blurred. She clutched the paper to her chest, her heart racing. Just then she heard footsteps. She turned sharply and saw two men walking slowly toward her. The same men in black suits. She quickly folded the letter and slipped it into her dress. "Ah, Mama Miriam," one of them said with a fake smile. "What brings you here alone?" "I came to pray," she replied calmly, though fear knotted her stomach. They looked at each other, then smiled again. "It is dangerous for a woman to walk alone. Next time tell Pastor Joshua. He will send us to protect you." She forced a smile and walked away quickly. But inside she knew. Those men were not protectors. They were watchers. That night, Miriam sat by the kitchen window, staring at the moon. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage. She loved her husband. He was her world. He had been her rock through poverty, sickness, and loss. Together they had built this church. Together they had lifted people from hopelessness. But now doubts pressed on her chest like heavy stones. Was Joshua part of this darkness? Or was he innocent, surrounded by dangerous people? She wanted to ask him. But how? If she asked and he was guilty, she would be risking everything. If he was innocent, she would hurt him by doubting him. Her eyes fell on the folded letter hidden under her pillow. The pastor is not the man you think he is. The words burned into her heart. She whispered to herself, Lord, what should I do? Do I keep quiet? Do I search for the truth? Will I destroy my marriage if I dig too deep? The silence of the night gave her no answer. Only the sound of the fountain outside, spilling water that never stopped flowing. And Miriam knew her life was no longer the same. Miriam's hands shook as she held the final piece of evidence. It was not just a letter. It was not just whispers. This time she had seen it with her own eyes. Pastor Joshua, her husband, the man she had trusted, had been meeting in secret with the same politicians and businessmen who controlled the shadows. She had followed him quietly one night, her heart pounding, her steps hidden in the darkness. She had seen him collect envelopes, bow his head, and shake hands with men whose faces carried no light of God. Her chest burned with pain. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run to him and ask why. But she held her tongue. The truth was clear now. The man she loved was not only part of the church, he was part of the darkness too. At home, Miriam tried to act normal, but her heart was broken. She cooked his meals, smiled at him, and sat beside him in church. But at night, when he closed his eyes to sleep, she cried silently into her pillow. Then came the worst blow. One evening, when she entered Joshua's study, she found an open letter on the table. It was from one of his secret partners. The words stabbed her like a knife. We thank you, Pastor, for your loyalty. Your wife suspects too much. If she continues, we may need to silence her. Keep her under control. Miriam froze. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor. Her own husband had betrayed her. Worse, he knew she was in danger, and yet he kept silent. When Joshua entered and saw her holding the letter, his face turned pale. He tried to speak, but Miriam's tears flowed like a river. Joshua, she whispered, her voice shaking, was I your wife or just your cover? Did you ever truly love me? Or was I only the picture of light you needed to hide your darkness? He looked away. He had no answer. The following Sunday, Miriam could no longer feel the joy she once felt. The walls of the church that once gave her peace now felt like a prison. When Joshua mounted the pulpit, his voice was strong. He preached about holiness, sacrifice, and trust. The crowd cheered. But Miriam saw only lies dripping from his lips. She could not keep silent anymore. Standing slowly, she walked to the front of the church. People gasped, their eyes wide. No pastor's wife had ever interrupted a service before. Her voice trembled but did not break. Brothers and sisters, forgive me. For years I believed in this man beside me. For years I told you he was the light. But today I cannot hide anymore. This light is covered with shadows. This pulpit is not clean. The church fell silent. Joshua's face darkened with anger. But Miriam continued. I do not say this because I hate him. I say this because I love God. Truth must be spoken, even when it cuts the heart. Do not follow any man blindly. Not even a pastor. Only God's truth stands forever. Some people wept. Others shouted. Some believed her, others called her a liar. But Miriam had spoken what her heart could no longer bury. That night the church split. Some members left, confused and broken. Others stayed, loyal to Joshua. Whispers spread in the town like fire. People pointed at Miriam in the market, some praising her courage, others cursing her name. At home, her marriage became a cold silence. Joshua no longer looked at her with love, only with mistrust. She no longer slept in his arms, but alone in the guest room. Her heart bled every day. She had spoken the truth, but truth had cost her everything. Her peace, her marriage, and her joy. Miriam, the pastor's wife who knew too much, lived with eyes full of tears and a heart full of scars. She loved once, but now mistrust ruled her life. Blind faith is dangerous. Never follow anyone, no matter how holy they look, without seeking the truth for yourself. Darkness hides in light. Evil often wears a beautiful face to trick the innocent. Marriage without honesty cannot stand. Secrets destroy love faster than distance. Courage has a cost. Speaking the truth may break your heart, but silence can kill your soul. Trust God, not men. Men may fail, but God's truth never changes. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.